Hospitals are meant to house life-saving technology in order to save people and heal their wounds. They are places where people seek out medical attention that could save their lives. However, saying that, many people pass away in hospitals. Over the years, hospitals have also been the place of human experimentation, resulting in the deaths of many people over the centuries. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 scariest hospitals from around the world. Before we begin though, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. And with that, let's jump in. Coming in at number 5, Bigler Island, Italy. At first glance, Bigler Island may seem like a picturesque Italian island. However, it is actually home to one of the scariest haunted hospitals in the world. For more than 100 years, beginning in 1776, the island was used as a quarantine station for those suffering from the plague and other diseases, and later as a mental hospital. The hospital itself was an absolute nightmare, with one doctor in particular being known for performing cruel experiments on patients, oftentimes with no anesthetic, sanitization, or even respect for keeping the patients alive. Now, some reports say that karma got to the doctor, and he in turn began to suffer from all the tortures of the dead, because he eventually flung himself from the hospital's bell tower, killing himself in hopes of freeing himself. The hospital was met by a lot of death, with it rumored that 50% of the soil there is human ash. As you would expect, the island is now home to some terrifying paranormal activity, with people risking their own safety to explore the abandoned hospital, but those that do often leave shaken, claiming they felt watched. Some even claim to have seen shadows that followed them around the place, heard voices, or seen things move by themselves. Very creepy indeed. Coming in at number 4, TransAllegheny Lunatic Asylum, West Virginia. Also known as the Western State Hospital, this was a Kirkbride psychiatric hospital that was in operation between 1864 to 1994 in West Virginia. Now, this asylum, like the rest of our list, has quite the reputation due to the barbarism that took place at the hospital. Not to mention, it was also one of the most popular haunted hospitals in America for that very reason. Now, prior to the construction of the hospital, its grounds saw a lot of bloodshed, with Civil War soldiers being killed on the grounds, even before the building was fully erected. Originally designed to house 250 patients in solitude, the hospital holds 717 patients by 1880, 1,661 in 1938, and over 1,800 in 1949. At its peak, 2,600 in the 1950s in overcrowded conditions. TransAllegheny quickly became home to more violence than anyone could have ever imagined over the course of the next century. At the height of its use, the asylum became infamous for being home to staff abuse and having incredibly violent patients who were often left unattended. Now, it seems as though the former asylum has some ghostly residents, including that of a young girl named Lily, who died alone just wanting to play with someone. Another ghostly denizen is Ruth, a woman who was placed in TransAllegheny due to being so violent. To this day, she still seems to have a vendetta against people, with many claiming to be attacked by unseen hands that allegedly are her own. Coming in at number 3, we have Severals Hospital, England. Severals Hospital is a former psychiatric hospital located in Colchester, Essex, formerly managed by the North Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust. It quickly became one of the scariest and most haunted hospitals in the entire world. Now, for a period of time, this was the leading hospital for electroshock therapies, as well as lobotomies in all of the UK. In the 1950s, psychiatrists experimented with new treatments on patients, now considered unsuitable, such as the use of frontal lobotomy. Many of the patients housed at Severals Hospital weren't even mentally ill, yet were still given these barbaric treatments. In fact, in some of the records, patients range from women who gave birth out of wedlock to moody teenagers. Following the treatments, many people were never the same, with some even passing away during the stay at their hospital. During World War II, the hospital was severely affected due to bombs being dropped by Germany, resulting in 38 women being killed, with many more injured. Now the hospital is closed, however, people that visit the grounds often report a very deep sense of fear, sorrow, and even mourning. Some visitors have even reported to see shadow people lurking in the corners of some of the rooms. As of today, the hospital is no longer open to visitors, with it remaining completely abandoned. However, some urban explorers still roam the remains to see if the hauntings are true. Coming in at number 2, we have Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Kentucky. Very few hospitals have as dark a past as Waverly Hills Sanatorium, making it one of the scariest hospitals not just in the United States but in the entire world. Now closed, the Waverly Hills Sanatorium is located in Louisville, Kentucky, with the opening as a 2-story hospital in 1910 to accommodate 40 to 50 tuberculosis patients. However, in the early 1900s, Jefferson County was struck by an outbreak of tuberculosis, which prompted the construction of a new hospital. However, some of the treatments they offered for tuberculosis included fresh air exposure, even during the winter. Other treatments included ballooning the lungs or even removing a lung entirely. As you would imagine, these treatments didn't have a high success rate, resulting in a large amount of deaths and a reputation for being a place where no one is left alive. Now, according to some reports, the deaths grew so rapidly the hospital was forced to create an underground tunnel in order to cart the bodies out without having patients see them. The tunnel was an entrance and exit for the workers of the sanatorium. It was built on the first floor with the rest of the building. They did this to increase morale, as patients were finding it a little upsetting to see deceased patients be carted away, so the hospital decided to perform those acts more discreetly via the tunnel. They also believed that this would help lower the disease's spreading rate. Now, once TB rates began to die down, the sanatorium became a mental hospital that quickly became overcrowded. Patients would often undergo treatments such as lobotomy, not to mention experimental procedures and physical abuse by staff. These days, it is known as one of the most haunted hospitals in the world, which houses the room where a nurse killed herself after finding out she was pregnant with the doctor's baby. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Beechworth Lunatic Asylum, Australia. Australia is filled to the brim with terrifying wildlife that could, on any given day, potentially kill you. So saying that, it might not come as much of a surprise to know that Australia has some equally as terrifying hospitals, including Beechworth Lunatic Asylum. Originally known as Beechworth Asylum, this is a decommissioned hospital in the town of Victoria, Australia. It ultimately closed in 1995 after 128 years of operation. For those 128 years, Beechworth Asylum was home to some of Australia's most violent criminals. It was also notorious for its abusive staff members, as well as for a number of unexplained disappearances. It is said that Beechworth conducted some of the typical medical treatments of that time, including straitjackets, restraint chairs, and isolation cages, all of which were standard forms of treatment for those suffering from mental illness. Now, all it took to land you in Beechworth Asylum was a couple of signatures, one from a friend or relative, and the other from a doctor. So saying that, it was easy for people to get rid of husbands or wives that they didn't want around anymore. Now, with such a troubled past, it will come as no surprise to learn that Beechworth is haunted, with one sighting involving the ghost of a nurse, Matron Sharp, who was said to wander the halls of the asylum, presenting a comforting presence. One of the cruelest aspects of Beechworth was what is known as ha-ha walls. Now, the key feature of these walls was a trench built on the interior of the asylum's walls. Now, this in turn made the wall appear low enough that it seemed that the inmates weren't actually imprisoned, whereas on the inside it ensured that none of them could actually escape. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? Were there any scary hospitals that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 scary objects found in abandoned buildings. I Wish You Happiness said, the Dark Mistress may never read this, but if you could take one horror icon on a date at any creepy abandoned location, where would it be and with who? On a date? I like the silent type, so I'd probably take Michael Myers, and we'd probably go to some kind of cave. I like caves. Refia Lockhart said, I've been staying up till 2 and 3 in the morning for the past several days just binging the heck out of these videos. I can't get enough of them. Keep up the great work. Love the channel. 2 or 3? That's closer to when I get up in the morning. I go to bed at like 9 PM and get up at 6 AM. That's crazy. But thank you. I appreciate you watching our videos. It means a lot. Lisa Stone said there was just something enjoyable listening to Lucy and how dark she sounds to go to bed at night. It's 11:25 in California right now, watching and listening to her. Stay safe, Dark One. Well, I hope you don't have nightmares tonight, but you probably will because you're listening to me. Rick C said they're gonna just keep using that one image of the one time Lucy smiled. It's the only image of me where I'm smiling, so yes, they're gonna keep using it. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.